These are slave catching tactics. This is the reason I started this particular segment with talking about what was happening or what could have happened while you were sleeping in a village is because I need us to be clear that these are slave ass catching ass tactics that they are now employing. And this was not a community of Latinos quien están hablando español. Nobody was playing mariachi. All right. These were black ass Americans, foundational black Americans. Okay. I got to make it clear because a lot of y'all have been bam fucking boozled by a whole lot of black people who have benefited from you not voting in your own fucking best interest. I'm sorry. I don't mean to cuss at y'all. But I'm just feeling a way because when I hear about slave era tactics being employed against a community of people who were asleep in their beds, and then I'm thinking, well, what's going to happen when they get to Brevoort projects in Brooklyn? What's going to happen when they get to Marcy project? What's going to happen when they come to the other project builders, when they come to the other communities? Because what I also did not see in this story or hear about in the stories that we often tell ourselves when we're talking about what was happening when our ancestors were being captured, I didn't hear what the resistance looked like. Because most of the time when these tactics are employed, the resistance is wholly absent. And so years ago, when I put out this following message on social media and got, quite frankly, a lot of people very upset, but I said the following thing. How does what happened at the end of Reconstruction factor into this hold my vote until you court me enough energy? Because there was a period, y'all may recall, where people said the Democrats ain't talking to me right. I know they got a plan, but they don't really have a plan that I think is appropriate for me. They didn't court me. They didn't come talk to me until it was time to get elected. And I get that. I understand that. But that is a version of electoral engagement that will forever keep us in a position of being undermined. Because quite frankly, your boss hires you. And when your boss hires you, your boss has expectations. And if you don't meet those expectations, your boss ain't going to wait for you to come talk to the boss. The boss is going to tell you, you can't be here no more. When you go to vote, you are hiring someone to be your elected official. And then your boss and us have to stay on the people that you hired to make them do what it is that we want them to do. But there is this real embrace of this idea, well, you got to court me properly. You have to talk to me properly. As if we losing an election by having white nationalist people be able to be elected into these positions is not going to harm us more than anybody else. Your elections are not where you should be getting your sexual that ain't your lover. You ain't gonna sleep with him. Well, I mean, you might actually. You might. You shouldn't. But you ain't looking for a lover. You're not looking for a pastor. You're not looking for somebody to date you delicately. You're looking for someone who will make decisions about how to distribute resources in ways that are not proactively racist. And you might not have a candidate to choose from that you actually like and endorse and support. You might have a candidate who is just the lesser of two evils. But you know what happens when you don't pick the lesser of two evils? You get more fucking evil. And when you don't have a plan to navigate lesser evil, chances are you also don't have a plan to navigate the more evil. So here's what I was saying and what other people were talking about when we were having these conversations. How does what happened at the end of Reconstruction factor into this I'm going to hold my vote until you court me enough strategy? What's the plan when racist vigilantes storm black neighborhoods with police escorts in 45's next term? I just need to know, because if you thought lynching campaign, now I said this in 2020, I'm just saying, if you thought lynching campaigns were a thing before, baby, let me tell you that we ain't seen nothing until we see how these folks wild out with their 3D printed guns and untraceable ammo. Which of the black celebrities telling folks not to vote is organizing the next Deacons for Defense? What's the lawsuit strategy? When Donald Trump finishes stacking the courts with explicit white nationalists, the Supreme Court has a 7-2 racist conservative majority, and they reinterpret the 13th Amendment to allow the return of race-based slavery. Did I miss that meeting? Because I just need the plan. Who's organizing the churches that many of us have no longer attending to be the safer space where we can organize, because our phones are tapped and social media organized finally realize that we can't organize for black liberation in broad daylight? Who's organizing the mutual aid drives? How are we preparing for the complete collapse of civil rights, such as they are, when violent racism is supported by the courts, your local police precincts, and armed militias? Where are you moving to? When they forcibly resegregate and bring back sundown towns, where are we going? What is the plan for when racist doctors refuse to perform surgeries, deliver your black ass baby, or admit your black body to the hospital, and the local racist judge agrees and you are now forced out by the local militia? Who's going to be courting our votes then? Is one of the black leaders advising you to sit out during this election building up your local hospital infrastructure? Did they build a pipeline of black medical professionals in your area to handle what happens when black folks are no longer allowed to use the local hospitals again? What's the plan for when our kids are kicked out of the local schools because of return to ordinances that permit racial screening? Is there an underground safe black schools movement? Because we're going to need one once your local 45 supporting school board gets going. How are we preparing for the explicit theft of black homes and property? The last time we were here, thousands of black people were kicked off their land and they fled with nothing but the clothes on their backs. What is the plan for that? I hope the court my vote or else, or don't vote for that lady because she cackled too hard and she ain't really black anyway. I hope that crew has a plan for when the next black migration kicks off, as our folks have to flee the unrelenting racist violence that will be the hallmark of Donald Trump's next term. Does your favorite rapper turned uninformed political commentator have a plan for that? Chances are they don't. because we ain't seen the plan. You know what plan we have seen? We have seen Project 2025. And here's what I need people to know. The people who wrote Project 2025, it ain't just Russell Vogt. Dr. Kevin D. Roberts, who is the head of the Heritage Foundation, the organization that pulled Project 2025 together. You know what his area of study is? You know why we call him Dr. Kevin D. Roberts? You know what his PhD is in? He studied black resistance, starting from the Haitian Revolution up until the rebellion of Nat Turner, which means that white man who has a wet dream of skeeting white nationalism all over this country, his dream is also fueled with a better knowledge of how we resist than we have of our own fucking selves. So, here we are. And I go into far more detail about this, of course, in the podcast. And I do slightly less ranting in the podcast and a little bit more informing. I just need us to be aware as to what is happening right now. Because the same slave-catching tactics that they were using throughout the continent of Africa, the same colonizing tactics that they were using, the very same thing is happening right now. And I, as an Africana Studies major, I'm going to say I told you so because I did. And I also remember a whole lot of my own people telling me, well, why would you major in Africana Studies? You ain't going to get no job. What you going to be able to do with that? I might be one of the handful of people in this country, and I know it's a handful because I'm certainly not the only one that actually has a level of knowledge that might match what that white man knows about us. So maybe, just maybe, as we think about how we navigate the new slavery era, perhaps we can finally stop listening to the charlatans and the Charlemagnes and the people who have benefited from doing nothing but causing confusion in our communities, encouraging us to be ambivalent about the Democrats. We know the Democrats are mamby-pamby. We understand it. We don't need to identify with that party. Political parties are tools. They are tools that you can use to either ensure that the least harmful option is going to be installed in the position of decision maker, or the best option is going to be installed in the decision making. But when you stay home and you allow white nationalists to determine who is going to sit in positions of power, and then they re-employ y'all, they don't need a new plan. The only reason they needed Project 2025 was because the plans they had before were how to succeed with slavery. They needed Project 2025 because they needed a plan on how to dismantle what the 60 years of integration had brought us. So they could have reused the old playbook. They only needed Project 2025 to return to America's base level. Where is our plan? Who are you planning with? Who are you organizing with? Who are you listening to? Are the young boys in your life still listening to rappers who don't know a fucking thing about politics other than what they can get out of it? And I'm sorry, I don't mean for people to be catching strays. I love the brothers and sisters in the hip hop community who are standing for what's right. But really, do we need Sexy Red talking about like getting the Trump stimmies? Like really? Because if that's what was going to happen, where are they now? I would love to see the plan, and maybe they have one, and I just am not plugged in. That could happen. That could totally be. Maybe I'm just not plugged in to the Sexy Red, Kodak Black, Lil Wayne, Snoop Dogg, all the rest of them, Ice Cube. Maybe they got a plan, and we just don't know about it yet because we ain't in that economic bracket. Oh, speaking of economic brackets, they also got tax cuts because they are in the bracket of people who benefit the most from the financial decisions that this administration is making. So here we are. Welcome to Friday. You're right, going into your weekend and praying that ICE doesn't do to you what they just did to these innocent women, children, and men in this community. And this is Chicago police we're talking about, who are already paying hundreds of millions of dollars in restitution for the harm they have caused to black people. Years of torture during integration. Imagine what it's going to look like once integration is over. These are real times. These are real questions. We have serious issues. And I hope that these sorts of conversations, at the very least, while I am not giving you the latest rundown and all of the news that you're going to need to go into the weekend, I'll do that on Monday. God damn. But at the end of the day, this is what it is to have tried to integrate into a community of people who are proactively trying to enslave us. So I would suggest that you start joining organizations that exist. You may not like the organizations that they are currently constituted. Join them, take it over, and make it better in its own image, in an image that you can tolerate. You need to be in collaboration. Mutual aid, I know we got to have way more conversations about mutual aid because not enough of us are doing it. A whole lot of us talk about it. Not enough of us are doing it. We got to think about what it's going to look like to build different systems and what it's going to look like to hide. Because that group of families, those 100+ families, they had nowhere to even fucking hide. They went apartment by apartment, kicking in doors, ravaging the entire community. They had black babies naked in zip ties. Where's Snoop on that? What's Ice Cube got to say about that? And if it ain't much of nothing, then let us forever regulate these parts of our community to a space of non-adherence when it comes to taking advice from them on these things. You can advise us on many things. What we need as a community for our best interest probably ain't one of them. You have lost all credibility there.